Good evening. This is Bob from BBD on this Sunday, the 30th of August. Yeah, and this year is just running past and it's just leaving us breathless. I mean, I've nothing to do and just moving too fast. The first one, obviously, I continue to talk about some of the news items that I've seen. This one is by Shishir Gupta in the Hindustan Times. This says Jai Shankar says strain on LAC peace to impact ties. Well, if it does not strain ties with China when they are within our territory, refusing to move back, what else will strain ties? I have no idea. It's just the most banal statement I've heard. Right? Then you have a HT correspondent writing, China building air defense positions across the LAC. If we needed any further proof that China is gearing up for some major action, I think we should stop looking. We should be actually being part of that action. But anyway, let's see what happens here. What is important is interesting. I remember if I mentioned to you earlier that I'm not sure why we are having a military drill with Pakistan and China as part of it, even though Russia was organizing it. And I'm glad we finally have a report by Rajat Pandit which says India pulls out of military drill with Chinese and Pakistani troops. Can't have business as usual amid LAC standoff. I don't even understand this reporting. I mean, first of all, we shouldn't be there at all. I mean, that's kind of an oxymoron, right? You're eyeball to eyeball. 20 of your soldiers have been killed by them, and you want to conduct exercises with them as if everything is normal. Wow, we're an incredible country, folks. Just incredible. While we are doing this, what we should also be doing is making sure that neither the defense minister nor the external minister go for the SCO meeting. I think from our side, it should be downgraded to the next level of the foreign secretary and the defense secretary. What's interesting here to notice is the report in the South South China Post, which says, could Russia side with US and India against China? And it says really interestingly, cracks are opening up in the Russia-China relationship from the status of Vladivostok to Russian arms sales to India. This is important. And I had said this earlier. Russia, interestingly, if you remember, invited India for a meet at Vladivostok because it wants to ensure that's the part that is being cynicized by invasion of Chinese roads. And China is sincerely concerned. I mean, and Russia is very concerned about it. That's why they did a partnership with India, wanted to do a partnership. India is suggesting that Russia join the Quad against China. But hey, all in play, all going on, right? But what is really interesting is these two articles that I've read, which make for very interesting reading. One says Walmart leaps into TikTok acquisition fray, joining in on Microsoft bid. Very interesting. When you read the next article, which makes it even more interesting, TikTok sale may not be enough to lift India ban. But India is an extremely important component of the valuation of TikTok. Is it time for Reliance to think big? Reliance has a relationship with Microsoft. Right? Why not? And Walmart is looking for a partner in the brick and mortar business or retail business, which Reliance has. All three maybe should bid for TikTok, and maybe because of Reliance, TikTok may get an additional listening in India. But what an amazing combination if the three of them can make a successful bid for TikTok, and what a message it would be to China. Interesting. Watch this space. The other thing that's of import here is, sad news is India sets grim world record with 79,000 fresh cases in a day. Week's count of 5 lakh, highest for any nation. It's a really small article. I'm not sure whether this is being done to keep our spirits up, or it's actually being done to sweep things under the carpet, because obviously things are not as hunky-dory. enough evidence to suggest that there was a period of time in Delhi, for example, when beds at Gangaram and beds at Max and beds at escorts that were reserved for COVID patients had gone down to 20%. But now my information is they're full again. That means trying times again as far as the fight against COVID goes, and that's going to be a very serious problem for us going into the future as it spreads into the hinterland. We better be very careful. But very interesting here. A news from a report from Piyush Goyal. Surplus land of railways will be used to generate 20 gigawatt of renewable energy. As I had said earlier, railways is an amazing economic force multiplier for India if used right. The surplus land, if it's used for generating solar power, and just imagine if the solar power can be used to power the rail network, but more importantly, if this could be used to power the farms, that, ladies and gentlemen, will be critical as we try and pull down, will be really important as we try and pull down our pollution levels, but also may provide a cost-effective alternative to the farms, but more so give a huge leg up. This amount of investment in solar will give a huge leg up to local manufacturing of solar kits and solar chips and solar panels. But here I would say that to leverage this, we really need to get countries that are partners with us, are countries that think similar, like France, who's part of the international solar network with us, and the United States and Germany involved in these huge projects. Then we have something that what I've always said is what actually is why China stays reasonably unconcerned. Is this Chinese electric car maker roars in IPO. XPeng, one of Tesla's Inc.'s Chinese rivals, raised $1.5 billion through an initial public offering in the US. This is what the United States needs to stop, along with putting a spanner in Alibaba's Ants IPO that's going to happen in Hong Kong and Shanghai. And believe me, they can do it. An item that I found really interesting, it says, World War II Indian origin woman spy honored with London Blue Plaque. Now this is obviously pre-independence, right? And her name is Noor Inayat Khan. I'm just wondering who's going to take ownership of this, India or Pakistan. It'll be interesting to see. Right. Then we have an interesting, which I said earlier, that India should make an attempt to get chip manufacturing to India, and that's substantiated by Ajay Chaudhary, who's writing this article called Making India Atam Nirbhar in Electronics. It says, quickly acquiring second-hand fab of 28 nm, which will take care of a large part of India's current need, instead of going after the most modern fab. This will not cost more than $500 to $700 million. Alternatively, attract a Samsung type company to move existing fab to India. I've always said that. I have a perfect location for it. Ladies and gentlemen, Ladakh. And then you defend it like the United States is going to have to defend Taiwan because of the fab factories and technology in Taiwan. Important. This is the place we have to get this fab going. Maybe you can convey, I believe there was a semiconductor PSU called the Semiconductor Company of India. Something needs to be initiated again with the help of the government to set this up, but it has to be in the private sector. But government help will be needed because the investment is quite huge. And obviously, as I say, I read an article in China Post or one of the Chinese newspapers which basically said that, let's not make this a geopolitical issue, vaccines. But China is obviously going to say that, right? But here you have an article which says, Russian vaccine firms divided on collaboration. Indian players seek more data before taking a call. They should. The Russians hardly give you any data. They expect us to become guinea pigs. They expect us to be the flag carriers for a Russian vaccine, but they will not share the details. How one-sided is this? We should take a stand and ensure that they deliver on the information before we undertake production from them. Russia has no capability of production, ladies and gentlemen, so they will need us to do any future production. Another interesting article, which I think that Indian infrastructure companies should take note of, it says, this was in the Wall Street Journal, Big Saudi projects still on tap. Multi-billion-dollar plans for new cities move ahead despite pandemic recessions. And the important part here is, since the pandemic began, PIF has awarded a series of contracts, most recently to US project management firm Bechtel, to develop infrastructure at NEOM, which currently just has a few royal palaces and workers' camps. The projects are so big, PIF calls them giga projects. Now just see, we have Bechtel. Bechtel has been given the projects. Indian companies like L&T and the other infrastructure companies should actually be following Bechtel and making those contacts. India infrastructure companies need these projects, whether it's rebuilding projects in Iraq, whether it's rebuilding projects in Syria, whether it's rebuilding projects and all these big projects in Saudi Arabia. But we should have a clear line of thought, have our information right, who's getting the contracts, and follow those companies up. Bechtel is the company here to follow, and let anybody who's listening to me who's in infrastructure, wants projects in Saudi Arabia, should think along those lines. Then an article then I guess we are also going to have to really worry about is written by Francis Bulla from Vancouver, which says small businesses seek new rent relief rules. Till now, obviously, the rent relief was being picked up by the government in a lot of countries, Britain, United States, and in Canada, obviously. But that I think that period is coming to an end. But this suggests the economy is still in doldrums globally. There is a fear in the United States that the recovery is plateauing or maybe even going down. Similarly, the same fear is now being expressed in some of the bigger economies like Germany, France, and in the United Kingdom. Demand, and we, ladies and gentlemen, these guys at least saw some V-shaped recovery during this huge mammoth stimulus packages that were thrown at everybody. We haven't seen anything. We are still way behind, still having to even catch up with the stage that all these countries are. It's time there was a wake-up call, and the government got up and smelt the coffee. Jai Hind.